For the past 5 years, I financially supported my family while my dad Frank constantly mocked my career as a graphic designer. Those monthly transfers covered everything from my sister Amanda's medical school tuition to dad's medications. Despite my six-figure income and successful design studio, he never stopped belittling me. At Mom's birthday dinner last week, surrounded by relatives, Dad loudly asked, "What kind of idiots actually pay him for doodles?" Something inside me finally snapped. I went home, wrote an email, and cut off all financial support. The subject line was simple: there will be no more transfers. Let me know where you're watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to set boundaries with family who didn't respect your career path. I grew up in a household with very traditional values about what constitutes real work. My dad Frank spent 30 years as a mechanical engineer at the same manufacturing company. He designed engine components for trucks and considered anything without clear, practical application to be essentially worthless. My mom Diana taught 4th grade at the local elementary school until her retirement 5 years ago. They were the definition of practical, hard-working, middle-class Americans. From my earliest memories, Dad made it abundantly clear what careers he considered acceptable for his children: doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant. Something stable, respectable, and preferably with a clear professional certification process. Something you could explain in one word, at a neighborhood barbecue, and receive approving nods. My sister Amanda got with the program. She always excelled in science classes, joined the pre-med club in high school, and now she is in her final year of medical school. She will be Dr. Thompson soon, exactly the outcome my father always wanted for at least one of his children. I was the problem child, though not for the usual reasons. I never got into trouble, maintained excellent grades, and stayed away from the party scene in high school. My crime was far worse in my father's eyes. I loved art. I spent hours designing logos for imaginary companies, creating digital illustrations, and teaching myself every graphic design software I could get my hands on. My room was plastered with typography examples and color theory charts, rather than sports posters. "When are you going to grow out of this artsy phase?" Dad would ask, peering over my shoulder as I worked on designs. "You need to focus on something that will actually pay the bills." The tension came to a head during my senior year of high school, when college application season arrived. I only applied to schools with strong design programs. Dad refused to even look at my portfolio when I asked for his opinion. "I am not encouraging this fantasy career," he said, dropping a stack of engineering program brochures on my desk instead. "No son of mine is going to waste 4 years learning to doodle." Despite his disapproval, I enrolled at Rhode Island School of Design with a partial scholarship and student loans covering the rest. Dad barely spoke to me the summer before I left, and when move-in day came, he claimed a last-minute work emergency and let Mom drive me alone. It was the first of many absences that defined our relationship over the next decade. College was transformative. I discovered my natural talent for digital design, branding, and user experience work. My professors recognized my potential and connected me with internship opportunities. By junior year, I was already taking on small freelance projects for local businesses. After graduation, I moved into a tiny studio apartment and began the struggle that defines many creative careers. I worked at a coffee shop to pay rent, while spending every spare moment building my portfolio and reaching out to potential clients. I lived on ramen noodles and store-brand cereal for months, questioning my choices whenever I called home and heard Dad ask, "Found a real job yet?" My break came unexpectedly. A tech startup needed a complete brand identity package but had limited funds. They took a chance on me because I was affordable. I poured everything into that project, creating not just their logo, but a comprehensive visual system that could grow with them. The company exploded in popularity the following year, and suddenly my work was everywhere, from billboards to national tech conferences. More clients followed. Within 3 years, I had moved from a cramped apartment into a proper office space, hired 2 junior designers, and started turning down more projects than I accepted. Last year, my studio brought in just over $700,000, with a healthy profit margin after expenses and staff salaries. On paper, I had proven Dad wrong. In reality, nothing changed in his perception of my career. Mom supported me quietly throughout the years. She hung my company logo sketches on their refrigerator and always asked thoughtful questions about my current projects. But she never directly challenged Dad when he dismissed my work as playing around on computers or making pretty pictures. Amanda walked a careful line between us. She would text me encouragement privately but stay silent during family gatherings when Dad made his usual comments about my hobby. I understood her position. She depended on Dad's approval and financial support for medical school, and contradicting him came with consequences. When Dad took early retirement due to heart problems 4 years ago, their financial situation became precarious. Their mortgage still had 10 years left. Mom's teacher pension was modest, and Dad's retirement funds had taken significant hits during the market downturn. Around the same time, Amanda got into medical school and faced enormous tuition bills. I saw an opportunity to help, while also proving my success. I volunteered to cover Amanda's tuition and send a monthly stipend to my parents. The amounts increased as my business grew, eventually reaching $5,000 monthly to my parents and covering all of Amanda's $38,000 annual tuition directly to her school. Dad never acknowledged these contributions as evidence of my legitimate career. He accepted the money with minimal thanks, treating it as an obligation rather than generosity. Well, at least those doodles are good for something he would say when I mentioned paying a bill. Or worse, it is nice that you can contribute while you figure out your real career path. I maintained this arrangement for 5 years, swallowing my pride each time he diminished my achievements. I did it for Mom, who genuinely appreciated the help. I did it for Amanda, who deserved the chance to become a doctor without crippling debt. And perhaps I did it hoping that someday Dad would finally see the value in my chosen path. Instead, things only got worse. The more successful I became, the more dismissive Dad grew, as if my accomplishments somehow threatened him. When I was featured in a design magazine, he remarked that anyone can get into those things if they know someone. When I won an industry award, he wondered aloud if there had been any real competition that year. I kept quiet, paid the bills, and channeled my frustration into building an even more successful business. But everyone has a breaking point, and mine was about to arrive in spectacular fashion. For Mom's 60th birthday last month, I planned something special. I rented a private room at her favorite restaurant, invited all her friends and extended family, and prepared a surprise gift. I had booked a 2-week European vacation for both my parents, complete with first-class flights, luxury hotels, and private tours in each city. It was my way of showing gratitude to Mom, while also demonstrating to Dad just how real my career actually was. The evening started wonderfully. Mom was genuinely surprised by the gathering tearing up as she hugged each guest. The restaurant served her favorite dishes, the cake was perfect, and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. When Mom opened my gift envelope and realized what it was, she was speechless with joy. "Logan, this is too much," she whispered, embracing me tightly. "I never dreamed I would get to see Paris and Rome." "You deserve it, Mom," I replied, feeling that warm glow of having done something truly special for someone I loved. Things shifted when my Uncle Patrick, always interested in business, asked me about my latest projects. I mentioned casually that I had just finished a rebranding campaign for a national sporting goods chain that people would recognize from television commercials. "That is fascinating," my Aunt Sophia chimed in. "So they trust you with their entire visual identity. You must be very respected in your industry." I started explaining the process of working with major brands when Dad interjected from across the table. His voice carried through the entire room as conversation died down. "What kind of idiots actually pay him for that stuff?" Dad laughed, looking around for support. "I mean, seriously, my son draws pictures on a computer all day and somehow convinces companies to hand over their money. If I had known doodling could be so profitable, I would have saved myself 30 years of real work." The room fell uncomfortably silent. I felt heat rising in my face, as 30 pairs of eyes darted between Dad and me, waiting for my response. Mom placed her hand on Dad's arm, whispering something I could not hear, but he shrugged it off. "Frank Logan is very successful," Uncle Patrick said, trying to salvage the situation. "His work is everywhere." Sure, Dad continued, waving his hand dismissively. "My son got lucky. Found some companies with marketing departments who do not know how to spend their budgets properly. Good for him, living the dream, drawing pictures like he did in kindergarten." I maintained my composure, smiling tightly, and changing the subject to Mom's upcoming birthday trip. Years of practice had taught me to swallow these public humiliations. Amanda stared at her plate, unwilling to meet my eyes. Mom looked devastated but unsurprised. This was our normal family dynamic, played out now for an audience. As guests began leaving, I helped Mom collect her gifts while deliberately avoiding Dad. But as the last relatives departed, he cornered me by the coat check. "That vacation is excessive," he said without preamble. "You are showing off." "It is a gift for Mom," I replied, keeping my voice level. "She has always wanted to see Europe. There are practical things that money could go toward. Amanda's graduation is coming up, and she will need help setting up her practice." I felt something shift inside me. Years of accumulated resentment crystallized into a cold clarity. "Dad, I have been covering Amanda's entire education. I have been paying your mortgage, your medical bills, and most of your living expenses for 5 years, all while you continuously mock my career and diminish my accomplishments." His face reddened. "That is different. That is family responsibility. Do not act like you are doing us some grand favor." Would you say that to Amanda when she becomes a doctor? That her supporting you is just expected? Family responsibility? Nothing to be appreciated or respected? Being a doctor is different, he snapped. That is a real profession that helps people. And what do you think design does? It shapes how people interact with the world around them. It communicates information, builds brand trust, improves user experiences. My work reaches millions of people, he scoffed. When are you going to grow up, Logan? When will you find a real career instead of playing pretend artist? Mom approached, then sensing the tension, and gently suggested they should head home. Dad walked away without another word to me. I hugged Mom goodbye, promised to call her tomorrow, and watched them leave, my mind racing with thoughts I had suppressed for years. On the drive home, I could not shake the familiar feeling of being 16 again, desperately seeking validation from a father who would never provide it. I had built my entire adult life around proving him wrong, and in the process I had allowed him to maintain power over me through his constant disapproval. More troubling was the realization that I had enabled this dynamic by financially supporting a man who showed me no respect. Every month when I transferred money to their account, I was essentially paying to be disrespected. The European vacation would be more of the same. Dad would enjoy the luxury, while continuing to belittle the work that made it possible. By the time I arrived home, I had made my decision. It was time to break the cycle. I sat at my desk until 3 a.m, drafting and redrafting an email to my family. I wanted to be clear but not cruel, firm but not vindictive. After multiple attempts, I settled on something direct and professional. Subject: there will be no more transfers. Dear Mom, Dad, and Amanda. After considerable reflection, I have decided to discontinue my financial support effective immediately. This includes the monthly transfers to Mom and Dad's account and the direct payments for Amanda's medical school tuition. For years, I have contributed substantially to our family's finances through my work as a designer. During this time, Dad has consistently demeaned my career and dismissed my professional accomplishments, most recently at Mom's birthday dinner. I can no longer financially support someone who fundamentally disrespects me and the work I do. The European vacation tickets are non-refundable and still available should you wish to use them. I have paid Amanda's tuition through the current semester, which provides 3 months to make alternative arrangements. This decision is not made lightly, but I need to prioritize my self-respect. I remain open to rebuilding our relationship on terms of mutual respect. Logan. I read it over one final time, took a deep breath, and clicked send. There was no turning back now. The responses came quickly. Mom called within minutes despite the early hour. Her voice wavered between understanding and panic as she expressed concern about their mortgage and Dad's medications. I remained gentle but firm, explaining that they had options. Dad's pension, Mom's teaching, retirement potential, part-time work, or downsizing their home. These were normal solutions for many retirees. Amanda texted next, a string of messages expressing shock and anxiety about her education. I felt a pang of guilt, but reminded myself that many medical students finance their education through loans and scholarships. She had always excelled academically, and could likely qualify for additional aid. Dad's response came last, a voicemail left while I was speaking with Mom. His voice thundered through my phone speaker, cycling through disbelief, outrage, and finally threats. "If this is how you treat family, then maybe we are not your family anymore," he concluded before hanging up. Those words stung more than I expected, but they also confirmed I had made the right choice. A loving parent would not weaponize the relationship when faced with a child's boundary. The weeks that followed were the hardest. I threw myself into work, taking on additional projects to keep busy during sleepless nights. I ignored multiple calls from both parents and responded to Amanda with brief, gentle texts, encouraging her to seek financial aid. When the guilt became overwhelming, I reminded myself that I had supported them generously for years, fulfilling any reasonable obligation to family. I began seeing a therapist to process the complex emotions of grief, guilt, and relief that cycled through me daily. She helped me understand that financial support had become my substitute for the emotional connection my father withheld. By removing the money, I was forcing our relationship to exist on its own merits, which was terrifying but necessary. 1 month became 2, then 3. The European vacation dates came and went. I later learned from my aunt that my parents had not used the tickets. 4 months passed with minimal contact, beyond a few text exchanges with Mom and Amanda. Through a mutual family friend, I occasionally received updates. Mom had returned to substitute teaching 3 days a week. Dad refused to consider part-time work, insisting his health would not permit it. Amanda had secured a partial scholarship and taken additional student loans to continue her education. Each update brought conflicting emotions. I worried about their financial situation but also recognized that they were finding solutions without me. Most surprisingly, I felt proud of Mom for returning to work and Amanda for finding alternative funding sources. They were more capable than Dad had allowed them to be when I was handling everything. 5 months after sending the email, I ran into an old family friend at a coffee shop. He mentioned seeing my parents at church the previous Sunday. "Your dad seems different," he commented. "Less forceful somehow. Your mom was leading their conversations, which I have never seen before." This casual observation stayed with me for days. Had my decision forced subtle changes in my parents' relationship dynamic? Had Mom found her voice after decades of deferring to Dad? 6 months to the day after sending that email, I received a text from Amanda that would change everything. "Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Just you and me. I have a lot to say." Amanda chose a quiet cafe near her medical school campus. When I arrived, she was already seated in a corner booth, fidgeting with her coffee cup. She looked tired but somehow more mature than I remembered, the kind of growth that comes from challenge rather than time. We embraced awkwardly, months of distance creating a barrier between us. As we settled into our seats, she took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology," she began. "For years I watched Dad tear you down and I never said anything. I was afraid of losing his approval and financial support. That was cowardly." Her directness surprised me. The Amanda I knew typically danced around difficult topics. "You were in a tough position," I offered. "Dad made it clear what happened to people who challenged him." "That is the thing," she continued, leaning forward. "When you cut off the money, you forced all of us to reevaluate everything. At first I was terrified and angry with you, but then something unexpected happened." She explained how, after the initial panic, she had applied for every scholarship and grant available. She picked up weekend shifts at the university hospital. She trimmed unnecessary expenses, and she succeeded. "For the first time in my life, I feel like my achievements are truly mine," she said, eyes bright with pride. "Not something Dad orchestrated or you funded, just mine." More surprising was what she told me about our parents. Mom had not only returned to teaching part-time, but had also started standing up to Dad. Small disagreements at first, then larger assertions of independence. Without my financial cushion, Dad had been forced to accept these changes. "He is different now," Amanda said. "Not transformed, but different." When Mom decided to go back to work, he initially objected. She simply told him that unless he planned to find employment himself, he should support her decision. And he backed down. This was difficult to imagine. In my lifetime, Dad had never backed down from anything. "Would you consider meeting with them?" Amanda asked. "Mom misses you terribly." "And Dad? Well, I think he has things he needs to say." 2 days later, I found myself sitting awkwardly in my parents' living room. Mom embraced me with tears streaming down her face. Dad stood back, his expression unreadable but lacking its usual confidence. "We have missed you, Logan," Mom said, holding my hands tightly. "I am so sorry I never defended you properly. That was wrong of me." Dad cleared his throat. "Your mother has made it very clear that my behavior toward you has been unacceptable." His tone was stiff but not angry. "She believes I owe you an apology. And do you believe that I asked quietly?" A long silence followed. Dad sat down heavily in his recliner, suddenly looking older than his years. "Last month, I was at the mall," he finally said. "I walked past that sporting goods store, the one you mentioned at the birthday dinner. Their logo was everywhere. The salesman told me they had just rebranded. He pointed out the clean design, how modern it looked, how it made the store feel more premium. Dad looked up at me. "That was your work, was it not?" I nodded, unsure where this was going. "It was good work," he continued. "Professional, effective, the kind of thing that influences people without them even realizing it." He paused. "I have been wrong about a lot of things, Logan. Your career appears to be one of them." It was not a gushing apology or a complete reversal of years of criticism, but coming from my father, it was monumental. Over the next 2 hours, we talked more openly than we had in decades. Dad admitted his dismissal of my career stemmed partly from not understanding it and partly from fear that I would struggle financially as his brother had with his artistic pursuits. Mom shared how she had begun to recognize patterns of control in their marriage that she had previously accepted as normal. We established new boundaries. I would attend Amanda's graduation, and help her with initial practice setup costs as a gift, not an obligation. I would not resume regular financial support of my parents, who had created a sustainable budget with Mom's part-time income. Most importantly, my career was now a topic treated with respect or not discussed at all. As I prepared to leave, Dad awkwardly extended his hand. When I took it, he pulled me into a stiff but genuine hug. "I am proud of you," he said gruffly, "not just for your success, but for standing up for yourself, even against me, especially against me." That conversation happened nearly a year ago. Since then, our family has been rebuilding on a foundation of mutual respect rather than financial dependency. The road has not been perfectly smooth. Dad occasionally slips into old patterns, but Mom or Amanda now call him out immediately. I have learned to voice my feelings directly rather than silently funding people while resenting them. My design studio continues to thrive, and I recently accepted an adjunct teaching position at a local art college. Watching my students discover their creative potential reminds me daily of why I chose this path despite the challenges. Amanda graduated medical school last month. We all attended the ceremony, Dad beaming with pride as she received her diploma. When someone asked if she was following in her father's footsteps with her career choice, Dad surprised everyone by saying, "Actually, both my children chose their own paths. That is what makes me proudest." The most valuable lesson I have learned through this journey is that true respect cannot be bought. By continuing to financially support my father while he demeaned my work, I was enabling behavior that hurt us both. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a relationship is to establish firm boundaries, even when that means walking away temporarily. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect your self-respect in a family relationship? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more authentic stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that your work and your boundaries deserve respect no matter what anyone else thinks.